Hello everyone, welcome to 27. Today we're going to do a little test on, well, a little video really, on entry-level Porsches. I visited Philip Vraby last week and we had a quick chat and he suggested it might be quite interesting to do a comparison between a Boxster and a 924S. So they're cars that are quite evenly priced. These two I think are around the 8 grand mark. You can get them cheaper. Obviously these are in very good nick, low mileage, but they are really the cheapest Porsches that you can get. The 924 has just started to get a bit of love from people. For a long time it was massively unloved, and I think that's largely down to the original car as well, which didn't have a fully Porsche engine. A lot of people call it the 924 with the van engine. That's not actually the case. It wasn't a van engine. Porsche re-engineered it quite a lot, but that stuck. And to be honest, they are a lot rougher. They're not really as smooth or as powerful, but the S's, it is a genuine Porsche and it is a genuinely good car. Now the Boxster as well, that hasn't really been appreciated and that hasn't grown in appreciation yet. However, we do have to take into account the fact that this is really one of the cars that saved Porsche. Before this, you had the much loved air-cooled and everything like that, but they never really made Porsche any money. With the 996, with the Boxster, that was really the start of the rejuvenation of Porsche. So anyway, let's take them for a little drive and see how they compare. Okay, let's start off with the 924S. First thing to strike you in this little car is that the seating position is quite unusual. You sit very far forward, very close to the screen. The wheel is very close up. Pedals all feel fine. Gear change is sort of typically Porsche. It's got a little bit of weight to it, but it's really nice. It's brilliant. Now the steering is quite heavy and it's just got that delicious feel that you only get in older cars with hydraulic systems. You just do not get this in more modern cars. Something else is that it feels heavier than you would expect. You would think it would be, you know, quite a light little car. I don't know how much it weighs, but there's a heft to it. It feels like there's weight behind this car, which is really surprising. Now the dash as well, it's got these instruments. They must be sourced from VW because I'm sure I've seen them in a Golf. Now I really like them, but it gives you that sort of 70 VW feel. You know, pace-wise, it's not uber quick, but it's sprightly and the engine really seems to like to rev as well. In terms of body control, it moves around quite a lot, but that kind of makes it fun actually. It's, you know, it feels loose-limbed. The engine's got a really nice sound, you know, I'm going to check, I'm sure it's not injected because it sounds like it has carbs. You know, you just have to really sort of throw it about, you have to keep the revs up. The steering is wonderfully tactile, it's not very precise or very quick. With the pedal spacing, I can't heel and toe. There doesn't seem to be any need for it, to be honest. The gear change is so sweet. In essence, a nice little car, and you know what? My guilty secret is I actually really quite like this car. I know 924s have got really bad sort of reputations in terms of, you know, just a stigma about the 924, and I can kind of understand it with the very original car with, you know, with the van engine that isn't really a van engine, and it was actually completely re-engineered by Porsche really, but with this little car, it's very similar to a 944, but in a way it's even cooler. Yeah, you know, it's not squat, it hasn't got that stance, but it's a slim, lovely little car, and I think in white like this, it just looks brilliant, and it feels so solid. I never thought I'd say this about a car, but I love the way that this moves around. It's not dead flat and precise like a modern car. You know, it moves everywhere, but that actually feels nice. It doesn't feel like, it doesn't detract from it at all. it still clings on really nicely. You know, if you want a cool little car, I think this is just so much out there. It hasn't got any of the pretension of the other Porsches or the air-cooleds, the 911s, all that kind of stuff. But it's still got that sort of late 70s, early 80s look. And I think it really shows that if you buy something like this, you enjoy your driving and you don't give a shit what other people think. You know, you're buying it because you like it. Not because some people might think it's a great, cool car or anything of that kind. There's a lot to be said for that, you know. You really have to work this little engine to get it to move. It's so progressive. If you load it up in a corner and then just sort of power out a little bit, it doesn't have enough power for the back end to come out, but it just it sort of closes its trajectory in a really progressive way. It's lovely. Okay, now in the Boxster. This is not the fancy Boxster S. This is a bog standard 2.5 litre Boxster. Immediately, I have to say, shamefully, that I feel more at home in this car than I do in the 924. The driving position is just more normal. You're sitting lower down. You've got a bit more reach to the wheel. It just feels more natural. Nobody can deny that Boxsters have a bit of a reputation. They just don't have the best image. There's nothing that we can say about that or to change that. That's just the way it is. But everybody also says that they are an amazing drive. Now, in some ways, it actually feels quite different to the Cayman that I borrowed from Phil maybe a year ago now, I can't remember. But in one way, they are one and the same, and that is the steering and the way that the chassis responds to inputs to turn. It's so pointy and so agile, this car, and so precise as well. Compared to the 924, the steering, I mean, you don't get quite as much feel, although it's still great in terms of feel. But it's really millimetre precise. It's so willing to change direction, which immediately makes it just fantastic fun. Again, you kind of have to rev it to make progress. It's obviously a lot quicker than the 924. Heel and towing on it is perfect. There's definitely more body flex than you would get in a Cayman. But it handles really, really well. I think the one thing, the brakes feel fine, the gearbox is fine, everything's great. The one thing I would say really is if you're going to buy one of these, personally, I might opt for the bigger engined car. This has its charm, the 2.5, but I think that the larger engine certainly would make it just that little bit more fun. Then again, there's insurance costs and things like that to consider as well, but look past the image and you've got yourself an absolutely brilliant little car. I generally don't go for convertibles, so I'd probably plump for a Cayman, but you can get these quite a lot cheaper. I think for the equivalent Cayman you'd be paying, you know, another sort of 4 or 5k. So these are incredibly good value. So I guess it comes down to which one of these two cars would I personally pick if I had £8,000 to spend. I mean, they're very different, but in terms of outright driving pleasure, this just pips it. The steering isn't quite as fulsome. the engine isn't as characterful, but the chassis in these cars is just amazing. I just love it. They're so agile, they're so precise, they're so chuckable. They make you feel like a brilliant driver. The 924 is a whole different thing. In my view, it's a much cooler car. It's a really cool car. If you just wanted like a daily run around, it would be brilliant. It's so cool. The interior's got that retro feel and that retro look. It's in another league in terms of that kind of stuff. And it is really good fun to drive in an old, in a more old-fashioned way. It's still really rewarding. It's fantastic. It's really neutral on the limit. But for me, this just pips it. It is faster, but it's not just that. It just feels... It's the precision of it. You feel like you're on rails. It just gives you back more. And obviously, this is just a short test, and I really do like both cars. So to sum up, driving-wise, if I was to pick it, it'd be this one. If I had to own it, I don't know, it might be the 924, just because it's a cool car. And it's so understated, there's no pretense, it's just brilliant. Thank you all very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Keep an eye out for the next video. See you soon.